Hey guys, welcome back. Eric Smith here, 5 Reasons Sports contributor, also co-host on Scouting the Fins, and you can find that on the 5 Reasons YouTube and also the 3 Yards Per Carry podcast feed. To open up training camp, the Dolphins have placed fan favorite Liam Eichenberg on the physically unable to perform list. There's no information on the nature of that move, but the Dolphins also made a corresponding move in signing free agent interior offensive lineman Daniel Brunskill. So that's what we're going to take a look at today. Talking about his background, Brunskill is 31 years old. He was originally a undrafted free agent out of San Diego State University, signed by the Falcons in 2017, where he spent 2 years on their practice squad. And then he spent the first part of the 2019 calendar year in the Alliance of American Football League with the San Diego Fleet. Then for the 2019 NFL season, he signed with the 49ers. Ended up spending 4 years there, started all of 2020 and 2021, and then in 2022 he lost his starting job to rookie Spencer Burford. After that season, Brunskill was eligible to be a unrestricted free agent. He then signed a 2-year, $5.5 million contract with the Titans, where he started most of the 2023 season. Then in 2024, looks like he lost that starting spot to Nicolas Petit Frere. And then he ended up starting 10 games still due to various injuries. Brunskill played a total of 761 snaps in 2024. Kind of looking at limited time here to review this, so I'm only going to look at the run block snaps in this review. 298 of those. I am getting ready to head to Virginia this weekend for a field hockey tournament for my daughter, and then after that, I'm going to come back and plan. I'm scheduled to go down to Miami, and I'm planning to attend training camp on August 1st and 2nd, then returning home and getting ready for the start of the high school football season. In this review, I'm not looking at, getting into how good of a player he's been well before being in Miami. Point of this video is to see what he looked like in 2024 and try to project what that may mean for 2025. During my 2024 free agent guard review series, Brunskill, he was a player who was on the radar of Dolphins fans, and he came up pretty often as a suggestion. I didn't do him because I thought he'd be, I thought that he primarily was a center in 2024. After going through the film, he was the sixth offensive lineman playing spot duty as a tight end or fullback in heavy packages through his first 8 weeks of the season. And he started every game after that, starting with week 9 with the right guard versus the Patriots. The week after that, he was moved to center versus the Chargers. And then he stayed there until week 16 versus the Colts, where he moved back to right guard. And then he finished the season in week 18 at center again versus the Texans. So obviously he's got interior versatility, and he does have some experience at tackle in the past, but I wouldn't really get my hopes up there after watching him operate, outside as the extra tight end stuff. This is a player that, guys that I really respect, and Alf Arteaga, Travis Wingfield, Kyle Krabs, they're all big fans of this signing. And, we're going to go through the film and I'll share my thoughts at the end here. One thing is that, like most players, the games that you watch are going to very much form your opinion on Brunskill. So that's, whether it's seeing him as that sixth offensive lineman or watching him play center or playing guard. It's a unique experience in each of those. So we're going to start the review looking at his tape playing guard. And I'm going to group the clips by the different kinds of run concepts. And this isn't designed to be all negative or positive. These are just clips that, as I was watching those 298 run plays, that I pulled to talk about later. And now we're just circling back to that, and we're going to walk through them. And then once we get through the guard tape, we'll flip over and we'll check out some of his snaps at center. Here we go. All right, we're going to start here looking at Brunskill as a guard. And first set of plays we're going to look at is the front side of outside zone. So on this play, he is going to be comboing with the tackle up to the linebacker here. And you can see that he does a good job there of trying to stay with that, trying to help that tackle to spill that defensive tackle over. Kind of uses that ricochet to get back there and cut off the linebacker. The running back ends up cutting back, probably shouldn't, right? The center's got good leverage here, should have stayed downhill and ended up running that through the lane that was opened up, but not much you can do about that. But Brunskill does a good job on this one. Next one here, still have Brunskill at the right guard position. And on this one, as you can see there, right, the idea, it's a crack toss, but I still keep this in the outside zone family from a guard perspective. And this is a tough ask, right? We're trying to get out here to a 4-eye defensive tackle and cut him off. And as you can see there, Brunskill just isn't able to get to that spot. That defensive tackle sees the tackle pulling and is able to get outside. Brunskill's not able to, continue and doesn't win leverage at any point on that one. Next one here. Now we're getting very similar to that first one, but we're seeing a better read from the running back. So we're getting the combo between the tackle and guard through the 4-eye up to the linebacker. And you can see that once again, Brunskill's doing a good job of not leaving earlier than he needs to. You can see that his eyes right now are on that linebacker, but he's still sticking there, helping that defensive tackle. And then at the end, right, gives that last little shove before getting back inside to that linebacker. And that's what opens that up for a nice gain. And then last one here for the front side of outside zone. And now this one is more of a solo block, right? Just Brunskill versus the 4-eye defensive tackle there. And what we're getting on this one, right, would like to see a little more movement there with that inside position, right? Would like to see a little horizontal displacement. Doesn't end up getting anything there. Play still cuts back based on the center and left guard combination block. So not going to say it's a negative, right? But this isn't just a glowing positive here either as a solo block on the front side of outside zone. All right, now looking at the back side of outside zone, still right guard here. So this is going to be outside zone going to the left, and we're going to get Brunskill working up and trying to cut off a second level linebacker. And you can see that he does a good job again, right? Not climbing too soon, not running off the ball, giving a little bit of help on that back side with the right hand to help that right tackle get around, right? And then nice timing to climb to that linebacker and get attached. Again, backside of outside zone here. This time we're going to get Brunskill cutting off this one technique, essentially a nose tackle. And you can see he's going to do a pretty good job here, right? Again, with this outside zone stuff, you want to create horizontal movement on the front side and cut off something on the back side. And here you can see that the defensive tackle isn't really trying to pursue over top that much, but Brunskill is doing a good job winning that hat across position right away, right? Flipping the hips around and just getting into a position that would open up some space here for a cutback if needed. So good job on this one. And then last one here on the backside of outside zone. So this is going to be the same thing, right? But now we're trying to get across a zero technique on outside zone to the left. And you're going to see here that Brunskill does a really good job here, right? Opens up, right? Not trying to engage too early, but you can see that he is turning and sprinting to that outside, getting a little help from the center here. Kind of neutral there, right? But keeps running. Eventually wins that position, and as he wins it, wheels around and sets a bit of an anchor there, right? So really tough block here to ask of a guard. We definitely saw our guards fail at this, and they kind of stopped trying to do this to an extent. Um, but really good job here by Brunskill of getting around that defensive tackle, the nose tackle, flipping his hips, and cutting him off. As we get into our inside zone and duo reps here, we're going to have more clips with this and a little more of a mixed bag of results. So on this one, it's going to be inside zone to the left, and we're going to get Brunskill trying to get across and handle that one technique nose tackle. And you can see there that, just doesn't have the play strength off the snap of the ball to really be able to create any kind of movement there. Does an okay job, right, in solid position there, but just not able to create any kind of movement. Not something that's going to be a strength for Brunskill at any point. Now on this one is going to be the front side of that inside zone, so we're going to get a combo between the center and the right guard up to the linebacker. And this is something that Brunskill does pretty well, right? He's using that gallop technique to throw his left shoulder into that nose tackle to help the center get around, and then using that momentum to bounce off into the linebacker. Next one here is not inside zone, but I kept it in there because this is a combo block between the right guard, right tackle, up to the linebacker. So you're getting, a similar look here. We are going to get a guard pulling across. So like I said, more of a man or power concept. But I include this in here again. They're comboing here on the front side. That tackle's trying to spill it over. Ideally, what you would have is that tackle spills it over. Brunskill's able to get this outside leverage here, seal it to the inside, right? You'd like to see a kick out there and for the run to be able to hit through that lane, right? We get more of a log block, so the back bounces. But because Brunskill's not able to maintain his leverage and to keep his guy to the inside, he's able to scrape over the top and make a play on that one. All right, this one is going to be inside zone to the right. And if you draw this up on a chalkboard, it's going to be center and right guard up to the linebacker here. But you can see that as the motion comes across, moves that linebacker over, the center never really gets there to help. From Brunskill's position, this is one of those deals where, he's doing enough because of everything else that's happening around him, right? Because this left guard is able to create movement and open up the lane. The center's able to get up to the next level, right? That's what opens up the play. So just one of those examples where even though we're not getting much movement here, that if everything else is working well around Brunskill, he's not going to have a lot of ugly losses, even though he's not going to generate a ton of movement either. This is going to be inside zone to the left. Brunskill is going to have this 2-eye defensive tackle. And one of the things that Brunskill does pretty well, again, he's not really creating movement here, kind of gets stuck in a neutral position, not exactly what you'd want, isn't giving the back a clear read. But Brunskill does a good job of staying connected and keeping his feet moved. We saw a lot of times in 2024 that we would get to this point and our guards would not be able to maintain contact. But you can see that Brunskill's feet keep running the whole way through this. And even though, again, it's not a plus level block, right? But the fact that he's able to stay connected, keep his feet moving, gives the back an opportunity to work with it and get a good gain out of that play. Similar rep here. So this is going to be inside zone to the left. We're going to get Brunskill working up to this 2-eye defensive tackle. And, we either need to get a declaration that Brunskill is getting around and creating vertical movement here, right? Or that tackle needs to spill him over so that Brunskill can drive that defensive tackle down to the inside. Neither of those happen. Again, back has to stop. But this is another example of Brunskill having good balance, right? And that's something we talk about often with Liam Eichenberg and not having good balance. But from here, you can see this tackle's trying to spill him over. Doesn't really work, right? And a lot of times you would see our guards from last year just get tossed aside there. But Brunskill has good recovery skills, good balance, able to stay connected and keep the feet moving, like we talked about in the last rep. And that allows the running back to make something out of it. And this is another one that is not inside zone. This is a pull by the backside guard, but like when we talked about earlier, still similar concepts in the sense that we're getting a combo up to the linebacker here. And you can see that, like we talked about in an earlier rep, that Brunskill's doing a good job using that gallop technique, throwing that left shoulder into that block to let the center secure it. And then he's doing a good job of climbing to the next level and sealing the linebacker. Last one for inside zone. So we are going to get a combo with the center and the guard up to the linebacker. It's going to be an inside zone to the right. And not really a clear block there. Would probably like to see Brunskill stay on that a little longer, but that linebacker is coming up, right? So you understand why Brunskill left there. The center's not able to gain that inside leverage. Still able to get a solid gain out of it, but good job by Brunskill here of getting engaged, keeping the eyes on the linebacker, and as that linebacker is stepping up, right, having the eyes to be able to see and get onto his block. Moving on to the next concept here. So this is going to be Brunskill pulling and trying to kick out the edge player. And you can see that Brunskill does a good job getting there, right? Fairly athletic, able to turn, run, get the head inside. We always, want to try to kick that defender out, pull left, hit left, meaning the left shoulder. And you can see that Brunskill does a good job, even though this defender really isn't crossing the line of scrimmage. Brunskill's working into the line of scrimmage with that left shoulder. So good position, but it doesn't really create any movement on that. So more of a neutral rep than a positive or a negative, right? Give him credit for being in good position. But when we're looking at these guards pulling and kicking out, you'd really like to see a little bit of movement created there to open that lane a little more than what it was. And then just one more for the pulling and the kicking. Again, I'm going to pull to the outside here, looking to kick out this edge player. Probably have the tight end staying on there a little longer than what he should. Doesn't necessarily get fit to the inside. Still, solid job there, keeping him to the outside. That back does not make a good read there, right? You've got your down blocks there. Your tight end here is going to climb to number 23, right? This probably should have still hit right inside there or cut it back. You've got two defenders with outside leverage. No reason to cut that outside. Works out. Not really what we're talking about here, but not a good practice overall. But from Brunskill, right, you can see him trying to climb back into that line of scrimmage. Maybe couldn't get his head across because he didn't want to stick it into the back of the tight end, but in solid position, able to keep that edge player to the outside, but like the last rep, is not necessarily creating movement at the point of attack the way that you'd like to see with a guard pulling. And then our last set of reps is just going to be Brunskill getting out into space, right? A little bit of pulling and leading on this one, pin and pull concept, trying to get to the outside here. And you can see that as he gets around this time, loses his footing, right? Solid athleticism to get out there, good recognition, right? Just kind of rolls over that right foot a little bit, left foot can't gain traction, ends up on the ground. Another pin and pull here. Brunskill right guard, getting to the outside. When we're doing that, we'd really like to see him try to get to the outside of that defender to get outside. Or, right, if you can't, then you want to see some movement created, right? You want to either get to the outside to let that back continue to the outside, or If you decide that you just can't get to the outside, it's more of a pull kick and you need to create movement there to let the running back know that he can hit through that lane. And in this case, you just really don't get either of those from Brunskill. Ends up with the running back trying to string it out further, and that edge player is able to, keep him from turning up field. And then last one here is going to be a bit of a screen pass, so Brunskill's going to kind of sell the pass before climbing up here and cutting something off. And nice job here just of being patient, right? Not taking off too early. As he gets to that next level, he's finding his target nice and early. Continue to widen it out. Get that position right. Either that defender has to run 20 yards over top to make the play, or he's going to cut back where if everything else had worked out, he would never be able to come underneath and make that play. So good rep for Brunskill here of being able to get into space and cut off a much more athletic player. All right, now we are going to flip over to his tape at center. And we're going to start out with the outside zone clips. And this is going to be the largest volume of clips that we look at here. So on this one, he is going to be trying to cut off this front side one technique. And we mentioned it earlier, right? This is another one of those plays. He doesn't get around, not really creating any kind of vertical movement to cut it off, right? One of those plays that because everything else was pretty good around him, right? Pretty good in the sense that mainly this edge player takes himself out of the play and allows the left guard to climb immediately. Because everything else looks good here, this block by Brunskill is just good enough for the play to be successful. Another one here where he is just trying to cut off the nose, right? It's a toss here, but it's still an outside zone concept. And you're going to see that even though he gets good initial position here, right? Gets across pretty early, he's not able to create vertical movement or finish getting around to cut that off. The nose tackle does not make the play in this case, but he's able to run parallel to the line of scrimmage, right? And would like to see better than this from your center and outside zone. Now, this is one that I really like. So this is going to be outside zone to the right. So his initial block is going to be to try to cut off this, whether you want to call it a 1 or a 2-eye. Not an easy block by any means. But what you're going to see here is that he does a good job of when that nose spikes back to the inside. A lot of times you'll see the center panic, turn his shoulders inside, and nobody ever gets up to that linebacker. Essentially, this is a combination block between the center and the left guard working front side to this nose and the linebacker. But in this case, you see that Brunskill's doing a good job of being patient with that before climbing to the next level. Think he went to the wrong linebacker there because we have the wide receiver coming inside here to crack the front side linebacker. But just the ability to not panic when that nose slants away is just a nice veteran presence to have. Here we are going to get a combo between the center and the right guard up to the linebacker here. And gets a little bit of movement there, right? Not really great leverage if we're trying to press him to the outside. Just based on the initial leverage, you can kind of predict this is going to be a cutback run. And that kind of plays out that way. You can see that Brunskill's trying to get around to the front side. Doesn't get there. If he was able to create some vertical movement with that block, then it could stay front side. But because that helmet is still on the back side, that allows the running back to cut it back. Would like to see a little more initial movement, right? Takes a little bit for that nose tackle to clear out of there. But like I said earlier, one of the things I like about Brunskill is that his feet continue to work through the play. And right, had we either gotten this earlier or had the right tackle be able to settle down there, would have been able to get something out of this play. Now we're getting weak side outside zone, so it's going to be a combo right guard center up to a linebacker here. And on this one, the tackle falls down. But I like Brunskill's footwork here. This is a tough block. We saw it in the last one. But watching the way that as he's snapping, that right foot opens up, head's coming across, right? Head's across right now, right? And he's in a good position to be able to try to work that vertical a little bit. Had our new wide receiver, Westbrook Akine, been able to get in there and make that cutoff block here, right? Had a good opportunity for this play to hit big, uh, partially because of what happened on the inside. All right, so here we're getting outside zone to the left. This is going to be Brunskill working up to this one technique, and we talk about horizontal displacement. Look at where we're starting on the hash mark here, and you can see that off the snap of the ball, right, that hat placement is to the inside for Brunskill, so what he should be trying to do is to widen this defensive tackle. The running back is reading these blocks out here, right? Starting out here, everybody's got inside position, inside position, inside position, all the way across, right? So good job by the running back here of reading that and cutting it back to the inside, but going back to Brunskill, hat to the inside, create horizontal movement. And you can see that by the time that running back is crossing the line of scrimmage, we have, probably 5+ yards of horizontal displacement there, and that's what allows this to cut back. Outside zone to the right, combo right guard, center up to the linebacker. So we're looking for Brunskill to be able to take over that 2-eye. A little better job here than what we've seen in the past. Gets that inside position right away. Doesn't get the hips all the way around and anchored down, but he's at least getting a better position here than what he had on some of those earlier reps that we looked at. Again, not your ideal scenario, but a step in the right direction if we're looking at growth over the season. Outside zone to the right, trying to cut off the nose here. And again, he trips here. He ends up on the ground. But like the way that he is getting off the snap, sometimes you hear offensive linemen or offensive line coaches say sometimes you have to gain ground or lose ground to gain ground, right? And that's kind of what you're seeing here is that left or the right foot opens up and he's trying to gain a little depth and he's doing a solid job of getting around. He's in good position here and ends up tripping, but like the technique here overall. This one here, so it probably should have been called as a illegal chop block, right? We're getting a combo through the right guard center on a crack toss concept, keeping this in the outside zone because for these guys it's still pretty similar. The guard's trying to work up. This is obviously a really tough block for the center to be able to try to get across there. But all he's got to do is slow down that 3 technique defensive tackle. You can see he goes to the chop block there, ends up getting him to the ground. Effective, right? But I like the toolbox that he's showing here, right? I don't want to see a center or anybody cutting all the time, but sometimes you're going to be put into a really negative leverage situation, which is what you have here. And, just willing to put his body on the line, right? Vet move here just to sacrifice his body to get across and slow down the defender on that one. We are going outside zone to the left, so we're getting Brunskill trying to cut off that 2-eye. And in this case, this is a very quick penetrating one technique. And you can see he's not getting a ton of help from the guard. The guard just kind of reaches out and puts his hands on there. Brunskill is not able to get across, right, to try to seal, and doesn't really create a ton of movement there, right? Obviously, never want to have this scenario where this defensive tackle is getting upfield, but if that does happen, right, if you can't get your head all the way across, then you really want to see him try to widen that out early so that the running back maybe has an opportunity to cut it back, right? In that case, the defensive tackle does not make the play, but that's not anything that Brunskill did to really save the play in that sense. That's the running back getting the ball and bouncing it immediately, which you don't want to see. We are back to something similar to that crack toss concept. I don't really like this play. They're going to try to seal the end here, have him climb, um, pulling the guard, and now you're asking the center on his own to cut off that 2-eye. And you're going to see here that Brunskill tries to cut him the way they did earlier, not able to get the head across. And when you don't do that, your momentum is going to the back, right? So ends up falling on his ass. Um, that 2-eye is able to widen out the run, doesn't make the play, but still affects the play. But this is a tough ask of what the Titans were asking Brunskill to do here. We are getting outside zone to the right here, combo right guard, right center, up to the linebacker. And good job here of creating that vertical movement. You can see that he's getting some help from the right guard. Works to get that head across. And then instead of letting him run down the line here, is able to generate that vertical movement. And that's what allows the running back to get through that lane, right? And doesn't have it close up and squeeze him in. I have this in the outside zone area, right? And mainly because of the path the running back is taking and the path of the center trying to reach on the front side here. But if you are into, old school wing T stuff, this is the old 82 down where you're down, kick, and everything on the backside is reach blocking, right? But again, just trying to focus on Brunskill here. This provides him the opportunity to climb directly to that linebacker. You can see he does a good job of not climbing immediately, right? When he snaps the ball and takes that step, he's staying horizontal a little bit, possibly to make sure that this defensive tackle is not spiking all the way to the inside, right? As soon as he secures that, then eyes are up to the linebacker here, and he does a good job of getting out front, cutting it off, and latching onto that linebacker. Last one for outside zone for the center reps. So here we are, combo right or left guard, center up to the linebacker. Again, doing a good job. Good hat position, right? Right now, this running back should be reading this to run through there, but Brunskill's not able to maintain that outside leverage and allows the running back to get tackled on that one. Now we're going to move on to inside zone and duo reps. So we're looking for more vertical movement here. This one's going to be combo between center and right guard working up to the linebacker here. Going to be an inside zone concept. And you can see there that, Brunskill's just kind of getting into a position block there. Would really like to see him get into a position to start to create some vertical movement before that guard takes it over. Had they been able to create a little more vertical movement here, right, then the back is able to get downhill a little more and get more out of that run. This one's going to be more of a draw, but the assignments and the execution are still more similar to inside zone and duo. So it's combo center, right guard, up to the linebacker here, and you can see that solid job, right? Eyes on the linebacker. He can feel that defensive tackle spilling over to the outside, and he is climbing, right? This running back, I get that he sees the space there, would probably like to see him keep it more to the inside there. But from Brunskill's perspective, felt like he did a good job there getting the shoulder in there, not leaving too incredibly early to then get to that next level, and has solid leverage on that linebacker if that hits where I think it probably should have. All right, this is a duo concept, and you can see that because the first steps are all going one way, and the back is going to take the ball going the other way. Combo here is center, right guard up to this linebacker. And you can see there, right, kind of opposite of what that rep that we just saw was, where the guard is helping out and the guard is spilling that over, right? We're in good position here. Should be able to hit this right behind the guard, but Brunskill's not able to maintain his contact and his defender beats him. This is going to be duo again. We're going to have solo blocks there, combo here. But looking at Brunskill specifically, you can see that he's trying to pin him to that backside A gap. We've got the combination block here, right? And the running back is getting to the right, probably bouncing out a little more than he should, right? But even had he hit that where the lane is naturally opening up, right? Should be reading it right downhill here. And as that linebacker scrapes over top, needs to squeeze it between guard tackle, but Brunskill is not doing a good job here. Allows his defender to fight back over his across his face, and may have been part of the reason that the running back ends up bouncing this to the outside. On this one, we have some late shifts. I think you're going to throw off some of the assignments. You can see that 97 shifting to the inside. A lot of times when we see this, you kind of just go to the common thought of zone blocking where everybody just kind of has their front side gap. And that's what happens here. But you can see that Brunskill not doing a good job. Left guard here does a solid job of seeing that, staying connected, right? Should be opening up a lane right there. But Brunskill's getting driven into the backfield, right? As soon as Brunskill steps to the left here, he should be just allowing that defender to run himself out of the play. You can see he's trying to gain that front side leverage, but never gets there, and his defender is able to shed the block and get in on the play. This one's going to be a similar idea, right? Late shift by the defense probably goes into more of a default call. So everybody's going to be looking to their front side gap here. And you get a similar play where this 2-eye spikes to the backside. And what I really like from this one is how well of a job Brunskill does passing that off. Good job by the right guard also of helping the tackle just long enough, but seeing that guy spike to the inside, knowing that he has to leave, right guard gets into position. Brunskill does not panic and stay with him. He escorts him over to the guard while keeping the eyes up to the linebacker here and does a good job climbing. Obviously have, a better call by the defense there. With a blitz, it would have been near impossible to pick up unless the tackle sees that coming from the outside. But from Brunskill specifically on this last play that we're looking at for inside zone and duo for a center, does a good job here of recognizing and climbing. All right, we're getting close to the end now. So next set of plays we're going to look at is going to be, so these are more your man and gap schemes. I just call it on away because a lot of time that's all your center is doing on these. So in this case, you got Brunskill there at center. All he's trying to do is to seal that nose tackle, and you can see that he's doing a pretty solid job of that. Would like to see him not give up those 2, 3, 4 yards, right, driven back, but he's cutting it off on something that's designed to hit more off tackle. So this is a good enough job in this case. Again, on away, ball's going to be run to the right, guard's pulling, so center has whatever's on him, nothing there, going away. Would like to see him be able to seal this one technique to the backside. Ends up getting a little too far over, maybe expected a little more penetration. Ends up head to head with him, which is not where you want to be. And Brunskill just doesn't have that, the short area strength to torque him around into that backside gap. He's able to scrape over to the front side and get his hands on the running back. Same idea, left guard pulling, nothing on you, blocking away. He's going to do a better job this time of blocking back, getting into good position. And even though this play is designed to hit more to the outside here, because of Brunskill doing a really good job with his on-away assignment, creating that cutoff, ends up with a lane for the running back to get through and get something out of it. Going to be the left guard pulling, on away. Really tough ask here, right? Trying to ask him to get back to a 3 technique, and you're kind of limited as to what you can do. We talked earlier about losing ground to gain ground, right? Perfect world, you'd be able to open up, step back here, and meet that contact all the way back here. But because of the guard, you're limited as to the angle that you can take. And you're going to see here, right? Maybe could have opened up more than what he did. Doesn't get a great open step there. In a poor position to be able to get to the backside. Results in a fumble. I think this ends up being a scoop and score. So really tough ask of the center here, but center also could have done a better job with that first step to give him a better opportunity to get all the way back to that 3 technique. Little different look here. So we are getting the left guard pulling. Again, you've got right on away. There's not even a 3 technique here. He's all the way back. Basically a 4 eye technique all the way back here. So I like what Brunskill does on this one in terms of checking that just to make sure there's nothing that he needs to get to before he then climbs to the linebacker. Right, and you can see the way that that block is a big part of the reason that hits for a pretty good gain there. But again, good job of recognizing there's nothing in his on or backside, but still checking without being too quick to climb while still climbing in a fashion that lets him seal that linebacker. Getting the left guard pulling, so blocking back here. Again, would like to see a little better footwork here. Doing a better job with the left foot than what we saw earlier in terms of, closing that space. He's obviously a 1 technique instead of the 3 technique earlier. That left foot is good. Would like to see the right foot get upfield and really get into a position to seal him. Think he loses a little bit of balance here, and that's what prevents him from doing it. And you can see at the cost of that, and he does get tripped up there a little bit, but if he's in a better position, then this 1 technique cannot fight across his face and get back into the play. All right, here's kind of the catch-22 on these on-away blocks. Going to be your left guard pulling, blocking back here, and we've talked about this, not play side, but the way that you're going, the step that you're taking. And I actually like Brunskill's step here, right? In the sense that I think he was expecting some penetration here. You can see how he's opening up a little more. The cost of doing that is it makes it tougher if that defensive tackle is slanting across, and that's what you get here, right? Again, really tough though, right? You have to be able to defend both that penetration there as well as over top and still be strong enough that if he tries to play straight through you, that you're able to make that play. In this case, I think that, a lot of times the way we talk about it is that you especially talk about pass rushing. Like your pass rusher has three options essentially. You can go inside, outside, or through. And a lot of times you can defend two of those at once, right? You can set for one and you can be ready for one of those counters, but it's tough to be ready for all three. I think you have something similar here in the sense that had he gotten upfield or tried to go through Brunskill, I think he was in a really good spot, but kind of guessed wrong here and allows him to get over top and make that play. Last one for on away, right? Blocking backside, guards out of here. And on this one, just doesn't have good power at contact. Kind of gets bounced off that defensive tackle and allows him to scrape over top there. You can call that, maybe a little bit of a balance issue. But obviously, we'd like to see him be able to absorb that contact a little better rather than ricocheting off of it and be able to maintain connection with that backside defensive tackle. All right, we're almost there, right? So last set of clips here, just got 3 plays of Brunskill as the center, pulling out and leading, which is something that the Titans asked their centers to do more than what the Dolphins did. You can see that it shows solid athleticism getting out there. It doesn't necessarily get into position to be able to seal that safety to the inside, but tough ass there and does an okay job overall of getting into open field. Now we're getting a pin and pull concept. So tackle is going to pin to the inside. You're going to get the guard and the center both pulling to the outside. And good job here getting the eyes on the defender as he's coming around the corner, right? You can see him lining up there. Keeps that outside leverage, right? Solid contact on the move, knocks the defender off balance. And then last clip here. So this is not going to be a pull, but what it is going to be, still getting into open field, which is why it's included here. But this is a concept that Miami uses. We've talked about it several times on this channel, right? It is a counter reverse. The Dolphins refer to it as dope. Essentially, we are going to get, counter action to the front side here and a receiver coming around taking the handoff. And watching Brunskill specifically, he's going to start to the backside, showing that backside block on the counter, but he's going to let the tackle take that over as he climbs to the next level. And again, you can see that once he gets into open field, like solid athlete getting out there, but not Aaron Brewer in terms of being able to latch on to a defender in open field. All right, that was a lot, and if you're still here, I really appreciate it. So Brunskill, very durable player. I don't think he's missed any significant time with any kind of injuries. I saw that he's athletic, being asked to pull as a center, pretty often in their offense compared to what other teams do across the NFL, but not necessarily that effective in the open field. He struggles at the point of attack versus power very much in the same way that Aaron Brewer does, and that kind of makes me a little uneasy if the two of them have to play beside each other with Brunskill as a guard. Plays with good quickness to execute those cutoff blocks and has a good feel for moving to the second level on the combo blocks. Not going to create significant movement at the snap of the ball, but he does have active feet, and that, we saw a few times there, allows him to create secondary movement as the defensive linemen are peeking to try to make the play. In the end, I like Brunskill better than I like Jack Driscoll from last season, and I probably, view him similar to Dan Feeney from 2023, who Miami was able to flip for a 6th-round pick when he didn't get a starting spot. I don't expect Brunskill to start in Miami. At least I hope he doesn't have to. And I'm not sure how much it really moves the needle over Liam Eichenberg as the primary interior offensive line backup, but it does certainly create a scenario where Liam shouldn't just be handed the roster spot to be that first guy off the bench. Aqua and Coral Report is a new website, and they've been putting out some really good content lately. And they pointed out that Brunskill's experience with McDaniel back in San Francisco, and also his experience with Brewer in 2023 playing for Tennessee, shouldn't be overlooked, especially with Liam being put on the PUP list. You have two guards that don't have a comfort level in this system. So even if Brunskill eventually ends up getting cut, having him here for the early part of camp can still help to accelerate those new guards getting acclimated in this system. Overall, we're talking about a move that was made on the first day of training camp. Nobody should be disappointed in this signing, and as long as you have reasonable expectations, then you should be encouraged about the potential depth that Daniel Brunskill can add. As always, appreciate you guys watching.